All right, everyone, thank you again for coming. Students, distinguished faculty, if you're here, or any other guests, but most importantly, the bright and ambitious students of Texas A&M International University. This event is particularly for you, and we do welcome you to this very special event. Tonight, we have the distinct honor of hosting a remarkable individual who once walked the same halls and entered the same buildings and sat in the same seats as you guys. So this individual is not just an alum from TAMIU, but a living testament to the transformative power of education and the pursuit of knowledge. We're privileged to be joined by a former TAMU student who has not only excelled in their academic journey, but has taken it a step further by embarking on their PhD. This journey, which began on familiar grounds of our university, has now extended beyond the borders of this campus, reaching new heights in the pursuit of higher education. I trust you guys may have the same ambitions to follow suit. In sharing her experiences, challenges, triumphs, our speaker aims to ignite the ambition within your hearts and minds. This presentation is a testament to the potential that resides in each one of you. The potential waiting to be unleashed, nurtured, and developed to go beyond. It's said that education is the key to unlocking the doors of opportunity, and our speaker exemplifies this truth. They have not only embraced the opportunities that TAMU provided, but have continued to strive for excellence well after. So whether your aspirations align in an academic sense or strictly in a professional sense, I think the guest story is a reminder that the path to any sort of achievement is paved with dedication, resilience, and a thirst for learning. So with their words, we hope to ignite a spark within you, a spark that fills your dreams and encourages you to overcome any obstacle. So let's hope to propel you into this endless future. I think I've said enough. Without further ado, let us welcome our esteemed guest speaker and a true embodiment of TAMU's commitment to fostering academic excellence. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Saliha Garcia.
I've never used a microphone, so forgive me if it like feeds back. So thank you, Tano, for this opportunity. I have no words, and that sounds so cheesy because people always say that, like every time they win like a Grammy or something. I have no words. Me either. I don't. This has always been my dream, to be honest with you. When I started school here, I saw myself in those halls, and I didn't even know what I was gonna be, what I was gonna do. I didn't have a plan. I had envisioned kind of an idea of where I was headed, but no one would have ever been able to tell me that I'd be where I'm at right now. And I think if you take anything away from this talk today, maybe you don't want to be a PhD, or maybe you don't want to go to graduate school. It's just that don't let your own preconceptions shape your future, like your misconceptions of things that you have been ingrained through academics, through people, through even yourself, when you tell yourself, oh, I'm not good at math, or oh, that class is super hard, no one ever passes. Like, all those things are inhibiting you from getting to where you want to be. And I want to show you that I lived all those things too, and I still live them every single day. And I got here, so you can go way beyond where I've been. So to start, my talk is called Beyond the Books, Navigating Graduate School. So to begin, I want to give you all some stats because I always give stats, and that's just what I'm comfortable with all the time. As a researcher, you're always talking about numbers. You're always talking about who's doing what, what's getting represented, and what's not. So we see that, oh, sorry. I've never used a clicker either. About half of the Latinos that have a higher education degree, they're placed within these regions in the United States. And if you look at number 8, that's the closest of representation that we get. That's San Antonio, New Braunfels. That's pretty far. I mean, we've all at least driven once to San Antonio. That's 2 hours away. So we can see that these are the percentages of Latinos that have graduate degrees, and it doesn't look like a lot. About 3/4 of those people that do have graduate degrees, 72 have master's degrees. Only 10% have doctoral degrees. Why? And this is just a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer it. You can just ponder upon it in your head. Maybe my talk will give you an answer, maybe it won't. But that's my question to you. What characteristics are the ones that set an outstanding student apart? What do you think is something that outstanding students have, either attributes, characteristics, or just as a whole? And you can answer it, or you can just think about it in your head. I can tell you my answer, what it used to be. So outstanding students, people that were doing great, they just had it all together. They had the smarts, they had the grades, they had the books, they had the vision. And it was very easy for them to succeed because they never struggled. They were the people that always raised their hands in class. They were the people that always were getting A's. They were the people that were always knowing everything before the material was even covered. And it was very black and white. They either succeeded or they didn't, and that was pretty much it. That wasn't my story, and that isn't my story. That's never going to be my story. And I think adding these pictures depicts a little bit of what it was like coming here and being able to have these opportunities that I had, despite all the failures that I endured throughout the way. So this is me presenting at a national conference in Las Vegas. This is me defending my master's thesis. This is me defending it again because it was like the actual process of it. This is me at a conference. And I can show you all these pictures and show you how I've gotten so far and done all these things. But this was the reality of what I went through. When I first started TAMIU, I wanted to be a doctor. Not the doctor I want to be now. I wanted to be a geriatrician. I was convinced I was going to help people through medicine. And so I was going to heal them and I was going to help them. And that was the dream I had. Obviously, that did not happen. I am not a doctor today, and I will probably never be a doctor. I switched my major really quick. I was a psychology major, and I decided I want to be a psychologist. That was my game plan. I was either going to be a psychologist or be a lawyer because those were the only two things I knew. That was also not what I ended up doing. I eventually found out along the way that there's this thing called a PhD. And what we think of a PhD isn't what's sometimes sold to us. And so before we begin, I want to give you some guiding principles that have helped me kind of overcome all the failures that I experienced. And no, changing my major wasn't a failure. No, it wasn't because I changed my mind. My failure was that on the first time I ever presented for Unit 1, I got a 45 on my presentation. The instructor told me that that was one of the worst presentations he had ever heard. Actually, so he said it was so disorganized, I needed to work so hard because it was going to get harder. I was not going to be able to stand in front of you all and talk or even be able to do any of that I just showed you in those pictures because I was so bad at speaking. I have always prided myself in being able to write, being able to read. I was always that kid that read a bunch of books, wrote more than they needed to. I also didn't do good on my English class, which was the one that I was banking on getting that A because I write and I read and I'm good at it. It wasn't. So the one class that I did good on was college algebra. Ask me when I've ever taken a derivative. Never. I never liked math. But that's when I started realizing that success is shaped through the ideas that you have in your head and the ones that you ingrain to yourself. So these are just my 4 tips. Take them, leave them, don't like them. That's fine. But I think these have helped me get to where I am. And if that helps anybody in this crowd get to where they want to be, I think that's enough. So first is dispel your preconceived notions of your capabilities. I'm not good at math. I suck at writing. I could never stand in front of all these people and talk because I am shy. If you don't actively work on getting rid of those ideas, then you're never gonna overcome because you're always gonna hold yourself back. And so you need to actively work on that, and it's kind of changing your mindset. I encourage you to take a growing mindset, just have a growth perspective rather than, oh, I'm just gonna continue being bad at math because I was never good at it. I was always bad. I always suck, so I'm gonna stay sucky. 2, maximize your resources. You have a lot of stuff here. There's so many things at TAMIU. Did you know you could get paid for doing research? Good money too. Not $10 the hour, more. Did you know that there's boot camps every summer where you get a stipend and you get to go with a professor and present your research? Did you know there's a grant that pays you $1,000 to go anywhere in the world? At TAMIU. Yeah, I didn't know that either. I found out way later into my career that TAMIU has all these resources and they want to spend them on you. You just need to know about them. And so I think I'm here today to tell you that if you have this crazy idea and you want to go to Las Vegas to present it, you can do it because I did. Stop letting where you come dictate your state of mind. I don't know how many of y'all are from Laredo, but I'm not from Laredo, but I basically grew up here, so I always say that I am. And I've always told myself, because I'm from Laredo, I can't do that. No one from Laredo does that. Oh, Laredo does this. Stop talking about Laredo. Stop doing that. Where you come from is not going to be the end all. That's not your identity, first of all. Second of all, just because Laredo has or doesn't have something doesn't mean that's going to take away from what you want to do. Because if you were Chicago, you'd probably say, oh, but Chicago has blah, 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 blah. And that's why I can't blah, 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 blah. Maximize what you have. You have such a good community here, and we don't know it till we leave. And I can speak for some of us that have left, that we don't appreciate the things that we have in front of us until we don't have them anymore. And that's really is the case for many of us. And then last one is find your purpose. I don't mean like your career, like, oh, I want to be a doctor, or oh, I want to be a lawyer. That's not your purpose. That's a degree. That's not your purpose. That was my idea of what I wanted to do. So I told myself, oh, I'm going to be a doctor because that's what I want to be. That's what I want to do. I want to help people. No, my purpose is to help people. It's not to be a doctor. Doctor is just a title. That's not the end goal. And so I want you to just keep those in mind as you continue on, maybe through life, or maybe you don't. But I think this is just good advice that I've gotten along the way that I want to share with you. And finally, I want to talk about imposter syndrome. Those are all the things that shape what imposter syndrome is. I'm sure many of us have felt it and don't know what it is. It's that idea that you're not good enough, that you had an opportunity because luck, because destiny had something to do with it. I got the job, oh, the manager was just tired of hearing interviews and they just liked mine. I got the the professor liked me. He let me just pass. I got into a PhD program. They needed diversity, and that's why I got it. It happens to all of us. It happens to people who are not going into academia, who are going into academia. In every aspect of your life, you will at one point feel this and go through at least one of these. You will feel nervous, shame. You will doubt your skills. I don't know if anyone here plays sports. It's that idea of, oh, well, when will I ever win the game if I continue sucking because I've always sucked? So you're questioning your ability, despite the fact that you might be the best shooter in, I don't know, all of Laredo, all of the world. But that's going to get in the way every single time. And I have sad news. It doesn't go away. It never goes away. Imposter syndrome will always be a part of your life. And it's better to put a name to it than to just call it, oh, my insecurities. Because people feel it. And maybe, like I said, you're not going into academia, so you feel like that's not going to be your case. Oh, well, no. But no, when you get to work, you will also feel it. Oh, I got promoted because my manager felt bad. I got a raise because they just had a lot of money and they just needed someone to pay. And you think, oh no, I would never think that. No, you will. It happens to all of us. And so here, this is where I diverge from my cheesy talk of giving you advice. And I tell you what I did to get where I am and aspire to get a doctorate. So what is a PhD? And I'm going to break it down to you in the simplest of terms because for the longest time, I thought it was just people that had a fancy degree and they just taught. So they were fancy teachers. And that was always like my idea. And I know a lot of PhD. So I can speak from facts that it was always, oh, you need to teach and that's it. No, there's more aspects to it. So you can do research, which is contributing new ideas, publications, highlighting critical issues. Right now you're thinking to yourself, what would I ever think in my head that would be even worthy of publishing? A lot of stuff. Does anyone here cross ever? Raise your hand. Yeah, have you ever crossed to Mexico? No one studies that, by the way, no one. Rarely do people look at border crossing. Does anyone go to the doctor in Mexico? Raise your hand. Research right there. But that's our everyday lives. Does anyone speak Spanish here? Is anyone bilingual? Research right there. So all these things that we live on our day-to-day lives, we can get paid to talk about that. Our experience is so unique and people don't know that. Now that I go to College Station and I've left Laredo, I had someone ask me if I get patted down when I cross the border. When I go to Mexico, like if they like pat me down because they have to check me, because that's the reality of what we live in this border, right? There's crime every day. There's shootings happening outside of here, right? They have those conceptions. They think that this place is like crime-filled, criminal, and flooded, like, and I don't know. I am not gonna sit here and argue if you believe that or you don't. But I can stand outside and go to my car and not feel like I have to look twice and get my gun out. So that must say something about the level of safetyness in Laredo, I think. And so those are research ideas. There's many more just based on our everyday day-to-day experiences. Then there's service. And this is probably my favorite part because it's giving back. Out of all the things that have been given to me and all the things I've acquired, I think the bare minimum I can do is give it back. That's the least that I could ever do in this life. And so, for example, things like this, coming to talk to y'all and hopefully showcasing to somebody, anybody out there that does want to do a PhD, that you can do it and that you're able to, that's enough. If y'all came for extra credit or you all came because you had a professor that forced you to come or you came because your friends forced you to come, if for 1 second you think, hey, maybe I want to do that, you can. You can. And this school will help you get to where you want to be if you let it. And lastly, there's professional development, my second favorite, where you get to go to conferences and get paid to network with people that have many, many ideas of many different things. You get to do specialized trainings. You get to talk about all the things that people, like I said, have never thought of. Crossing the border, living in a border makes you so unique, so much more unique than you'd ever think. Because once you leave and you talk about your day-to-day experiences of, for example, oh, I came here, I'm speaking English, and right now when I go home, I'm gonna speak Spanish. And that's gonna blow someone's mind away. To me, that's my everyday life. I go home and I speak Spanish to my mom all the time, my parents, all the time. That blows people's minds away. The fact that we're code switching on a regular basis, I try to explain that to somebody that doesn't even speak a second language. Crazy. So how do you craft your grad school story? How do you get to where you want to be? Where do you start? And I'm gonna lay out this cookie cutter stuff right here. I'm gonna tell you right now and be completely honest, that was not exactly what I did. Everything came at different rates, at different levels. I just think it's nice to lay it out for you, at least so that when you look at it, you can have a guideline, a goal plan, which was something I didn't have. So I had to kind of figure out every step of the way. And I had to annoy a lot of people at many different places so I could get to where I wanted to be. And if I can save you time, energy, and money, that's enough for me. So first of all is build your network. Talk to your professors. They're not as scary as you all think. They're really here to help. And I know it seems like some of them are really hard. I've read the reviews, rate my professors real nice. But they are, for the most part, wanting to help you. If you're struggling, the issue with struggling isn't that you're failing, it's that you're not asking for help. Your professors don't want to fail you. Trust me, I'm about to become one. I would never want to fail somebody. That's not my end goal, ever. So if you start asking for help early, what incentive does that give them to fail you? None. You just have to show that you're trying, and it's really, truly that simple. And it sounds absurd because you think, well, the class is so hard. The professor has like lockdown browser, and I have to record myself like in back of a mirror so that I'm not cheating. But if you ask for help, I promise you, they will try to help you to the most that they can. Use their office hours. They're here for that. Don't be afraid to talk to them. If you have a question, it's a valid one. And your concerns are worth being answered. That's what they're here for. That's their job. So don't feel like you're bothering them and that you can't go talk to them, or you can't ask them for help, or you can't do all these things, because that's what their office hours are there for. And lastly, explore topics, ideas, and courses that interest you. I am going to be a hypocrite here because I know some of us are just trying to finish our degree as fast as we can, and we will probably not do that. We will take the classes that are offered, and that's it. And I don't know if that was the case for any of y'all. You all can raise your hand if you're just taking classes because you need to take them. But that was the case sometimes for me. I didn't get to explore many of the topics I wanted to do. And so to give you all some insight, I started with psychology, like I said. I did my master's in political science, and I'm doing my PhD in political science. I did not end up in psychology. I did my undergrad thesis in psychology. I did psycholinguistics. So the idea of when people code switch and why they're code switching and what is, for example, the frequency at which you do it, I'm not doing that anymore at all. I don't even research that whatsoever. And I spent like 3 years doing that. And so explore stuff. Ask if you can audit a class, and that's maybe too much because you're asking to take a class for free and basically sitting in there for free. But like I said, try to find your passion, what you want to do, not what career you want to have, because a career that comes and goes. Like a career, yeah, you can be a professor, be a teacher, you can be a lawyer, but what you're doing out of that is kind of what matters, what should matter. Reach for academic support. Like I said, there's a lot of resources. These are just a few. For example, TAMIU ARC is a very good resource. Shout out to Tano. They helped me with my thesis. They helped me look at my CV. They looked at my resume. They looked at all my grad school applications. So there's people that are willing to help you. Do you want an internship? They're there to help you. Do you want to get paid $25 the hour and, I don't know, do some software stuff? They can help you. Do you want to get paid to do research during the summer? They can do that too. There's a program called Get Fit that looks to, like I said, get representation for minorities, and that's the main goal. So having representation within the public health field, and it's a summer boot camp where you basically create a project, a research project. My team, we did it on bipolar disorder and how it's very frequently diagnosed, and guess amongst who? Minorities. Yeah. So there's so many resources for you to go to. There's so many people willing to help. You just have to ask. And I think that's the main takeaway from all of this. And it will continue to be. Lastly, please seek balance. And like I said, I'm going to be a hypocrite again because there are days I have not slept for 24 hours today. But prioritize your well-being. Take care of yourself. You matter, you do. I know sometimes tests are hard and you have to pull all-nighters. I do that more than I'm proud of. But if you actively seek the balance, you are actively making an effort, and that's so much closer than someone who's not trying at all. And cheesy as it sounds, getting started is the hardest part. Set boundaries. Don't hang out with people that are not going to be helping you with your goals. If they're telling you what you're doing is stupid, then that's probably not the person that you want to be hanging out with in the long term. If they're telling you cut class and don't do this, oh, do that, that's probably not a good influence. And I'm not here to be a motherly figure or be somebody to give you advice on who you should be friends with, but do yourself a favor and set those boundaries, because what you want to do is important, and you shouldn't let your friends or somebody else influence what you're going to do with your life just because they don't know what they're doing with theirs. Third, manage your time. That one's hard. I wasn't going to do this, but this is my planner, and I am so annoying for doing that, but everywhere. And yes, this is so, I am those people that just need to manage their time. I just need to do it. If I'm not writing down what I'm doing throughout the day, I'm not going to get it done. And maybe you don't accomplish your to-do list, you don't scratch everything off, at least you wrote it. And that's the first step, because I didn't get to that point. Like, I was not born being planned. If you looked at my room for 1 second, you'd understand my dilemma where I am school planned, but not life planned. So you, like I said, you try to seek a balance where you can and find support. Lastly, just find people that either share your similar interests, find people that will back you up. It's hard sometimes when it could be your own family going against you, saying maybe those career aspirations, what are you going to do with an art degree? What are you going to do with bio? And that's hard. And I'm not telling you because I lived it, because I see it. I have friends, I have people, I have very close loved ones where their parents have questioned their career choices. And that's fine. Your parents can question your career choices. That's totally their prerogative. Just don't let it change, like I said, your purpose. If you want to get an art degree because you want to showcase X, Y, and Z, do it. That's your purpose. Don't let other people dictate what you're going to do. And sometimes it's hard when it's not your blood that's supporting you or when it's just your friends, but try to find people. There's a lot of clubs at TAMIU. There's a lot of organizations. You like sports, there's intramurals. You like gaming, there's stuff for that too. You like Taylor Swift, there's also a club for that. There's, I think, even a crochet club last time I checked. So there's people that are like-minded like you, and you should hang out with or try to seek those kinds of people, because those will be your support system when things get tough, because things will continue to get tough. As we continue on through life and do this thing called adulting that we all are also scared of because it's hard, having a support system helps. Yes, you need to be independent, but also having somebody that's gonna tell you it's hard for them too is nice to hear. And so lastly, I just want to talk about your grad school applications. And this was probably the hardest part for me. So I will kind of break down a little bit of what it was like applying to PhD programs, because no one really ever tells you what they're looking for or what you need to have a good application. So first, you want the faculty that you want to work with to align with your goals. So you basically have to find people that are doing research in what you want to do. And that's harder. That's easier said than done, because I scrolled through so many websites trying to look for somebody that was doing Hispanic political behavior, and there was none. There was so little being done within that. And even then, like, they're looking at Latinos as a whole. And I can tell you, and I'm sure you would agree with me, that Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Argentinians, Peruvians, Mexicans don't all have the same preferences, ideologies, or just political behavior as a whole. If you guys have friends that are Latinos that are not Mexican, you know they have different ideas. And so they always lump us all together because we're all together in the same thing. And so it's hard finding someone that is doing exactly what you're doing, but try to find at least a common goal. So for example, I like to study behavior. I like to know why people are doing certain things. I like to know why people make different kinds of decisions. And that's what I look for throughout my applications. Look at the deadlines. There's waivers, there's application fee waivers as well. Grad school's expensive. If you ever paid for an application app through Apply Texas, you know that it's not cheap. And I'm sure you all did, because if you come to TAMIU, you had to pay for it. So when you go to grad school, it's also not cheap. And so you can get waivers if you ask for them, and you just have to kind of email somebody, either the graduate school director, and tell them that you're interested in going, and they can waive that fee for you, and you save yourself $100, which is like a nice pair of boots for me. So I'll take it any day. And so creating a solid game plan of when the deadlines are due, that's super important. Making sure that you have all your material, because sadly stuff happens. And for example, there was grad school applications I had that my recommender never sent the recommendation letter to. So I automatically got rejected. Then lastly, there's funding, which is what is probably the most important part, in my opinion. If you're not going to get paid to do something that you love, then don't do it at all, especially if it's 5 years plus. So I will talk a little bit more about assistantships, fellowships, and work studies, and a little bit of the scholarships I kind of found for you all. If you all are in graduate school or want to reach out to some scholarships and get financial support. And their last two are just kind of program-based information that you should look at. So for example, I'll give just one that's here in TAMIU. There's a PhD program, the criminal justice one, and that's more of a hybrid base, meaning that I think you can do like the first 2 years. I am not sponsoring the program because I'm not a coordinator for it. So don't quote me on any of this, but I know it is a hybrid program because I know the director herself. And so there is that kind of, you can stay here in Laredo or leave Laredo component. I, for my PhD, had to go to College Station. It's a full in-person, so I go to class Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, sometimes Friday. And there's full online ones too. So let's say you don't want to leave, or you can't leave Laredo, and that's fine. There's programs for you too. So don't limit yourself to just, oh, I don't want to live there, or oh, moving is so far. There's an option for everybody. You just kind of have to look for it and check the curriculum. That one can be kind of hard because it's kind of getting an idea of what classes you will end up taking, and in grad programs too. So if you're looking to go for a master's, let's say you want to get an MBA, start looking at the classes that you might take, because it might be beneficial for you to just get an idea of what classes you will be exposed to before you start doing that. Also, completion timeline. So some programs are 2 years, some programs are 3 years, some programs are even longer. So for example, if you're doing a PhD, you're at least signing away 5 years of your life minimum. And so just make sure you have those in mind. That way you can kind of coordinate with the program itself and make sure that it aligns with your goals. Because if you have a 3-year plan and then your program is 6 years, and I don't think that's pretty well for you. You're probably going to have to take like 20 classes every semester, which is not recommended on my part. Last 3 slides will be decoding finances. So I will talk a little bit about assistantships, fellowships, work study opportunities, grad school scholarships, and financial support systems. So what is an assistantship? An assistantship is basically when you do some kind of service, either through teaching, sometimes research, and the school pays you for it. That's kind of where I'm at. So I do research and I get paid for it through my school, and therefore they pay for all my tuition. So I go to school for free and I just research what I want for free. They offer financial support for your tuition and sometimes your living expenses. So I get a stipend for my living expenses, and therefore they pay for my rent every single month. And then there's fellowships, which is the additional money that they give you for being X, Y, or Z. Sometimes they'll give it to you for being a minority. Sometimes they'll give it to you for being an exceptional student. Sometimes they'll give it to you because they just have extra money and they need someone to give it to. And it just depends. I hate to say it, but sometimes it's with luck. So depending how much the programs give out, so will depend who will get in, how many people get it usually. So for example, with my program, they only give 1 per year. It just so happened that I was able to get it. I didn't manage, I was able to get it. I was recommended and they gave it to me. So I have an extra income because of this fellowship, because of merit that I got through TAMIU. So because I went on these conferences, I maximized my resources, they're rewarding me with more money for it. Then there's work study opportunities. That's kind of what I did when I was here at TAMIU. So I would work and I would study at the same time. And I'm sure you guys are very familiarized with those. It's like usually people work at the rec, or like they'll work at the admissions place, I believe, or like they work sometimes with like career services, event services. It's like a mutual like work study where you're like currently working and you have to be a student to be able to work and also take part of like the initiative. Sometimes programs have that, so it's like a half-time job sort of thing. Some graduate schools do offer it, some don't. It just really depends, because working half-time is sometimes not feasible when you're kind of dedicating your life to studying and just doing your PhD program. So it really depends on the program itself. I found very little that do these kinds of things because it's such a time burden on students themselves. So it depends. The last 2 are graduate school scholarships. So sometimes graduate schools themselves will give you scholarships additionally. So that's what happened to me here at TAMIU. I was doing kind of like a work study, and then the graduate school itself gave me a scholarship for continuing to do research and doing all these things. So you have to kind of build your portfolio. You can't just say, oh, I love research and I want money. You have to showcase that you actually genuinely do love research and you want to use these funds to do something greater or expose the said field that you're investigating. And finally, there's financial support services, like I mentioned. That's just kind of like the financial aid office. Sometimes they'll give you stuff through FAFSA, or they'll give you just like extra funds for being like a student. I kind of created this list of ongoing scholarships that you all can apply to. So I tried to make it as diverse as I could. I cannot put every single major in the world there because it would be impossible for me. That would be a cool job. And so I found some that you can all look into. Some of these I've gotten before. So there's the STAR scholarship, there's a Hispanic scholarship consortium. I integrated law in case some of you want to be lawyers. I integrated STEM in case some of you guys are STEM majors. I integrated what's it called, psychology, because I know there's a lot of psychology majors as well. And lastly, these are just your materials. So I'm just going to break them down very briefly. The 3 materials that I think are the most important to graduate school, and this applies to either a PhD or a master's degree. So one is your personal statement. That's your identity. That's kind of your motivation. That's what you will be showcasing to all the professors, that why you plan to apply there, why you're planning to go there, why you're a good fit. So you're kind of selling yourself to the school and showcasing to them why you'd be a good candidate to be there to begin with. Some things that you should keep in mind when writing these, and I think you have to do it for almost all master's programs as well. So this is a good thing if you want to do like an MBA, an MA, MS, MIS. I'm trying to find like another abbreviation I could think off the top of my head, but I can't. All those, you kind of have to showcase what you're going to do with this degree and why you should be admitted. So why you fit. I think the last part doesn't really apply if you're doing like a master's degree, but for sure if you're doing a PhD, like you have to say why you're specifically supposed to be there. Because I could say, oh, it's because I love A&M and I get them, but that's not, no. You have to showcase more. So I had to say, well, because of blah, 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 blah's interests align with mine, and the work they've done on blah, 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 blah has helped me be able to write blah, 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 blah. That's kind of how you integrate how what you're doing will help them and they will help you through their research. Step 2 is a writing sample. I think that's the hardest one because not all of us like writing and not all of us are doing thesis. You can use a research paper. I was actually told this when I first started thinking of applying. They told me to just use a research paper that I'd done for a class, and that was something that I contemplated. I didn't end up doing that because I did a thesis, but a class research paper that's been well defined and gleaned through, that's something you can apply with as well. You don't need a fancy thesis or you don't need all these regressions. You can apply with just the research paper you've done for a class. And if it's a good one and it's a topic that you're interested in, then you can use that. Ongoing research. Some of us have been doing research for a long time and we have like collaborative projects with our professors. You can use that too, depending on what your advisor advises. So, sorry for the redundancy. If your advisor says that you wrote a good chunk of it, then you can use that as well to help you just apply. And lastly, it's recommendation letters. And I think this one can go out to everybody because we all need a recommendation letter at one point, either for a job, an internship, anything. And I think this is general advice that I can give everybody in here. And maybe you can take it with a grain of salt, but I think it's worthy of just taking into consideration because when you get these recommendation letters, it's kind of like how someone else views you. It's a reflection of who they perceive you to be. And so you don't want to ask that professor that gave you a D, like don't do that. Or don't ask the professor that you were actively not showing up to class because they remember. So you want to ask somebody that you have solidified a strong relationship with. And it doesn't always have to be a professor. It could be a mentor. It could be your boss that you worked for your job at the last 3 years. Your advisors. All these people are there to help you. And if you've built active relationships with them and you weren't just like not showing up, not talking to them, then for sure they'll remember you and they have something to speak up upon you. I would say create a list. I am very organized, so I like to create lists all the time. And I would advise you to do so as well because sometimes it doesn't always work out and they can't write those recommendation letters for you. And so it's easy to kind of go down a list and see, okay, who will be able to write me one, who won't. Maybe you're applying to multiple programs and you can't ask for 20 recommendation letters for 20 different programs from the same person. Please don't do that. They will probably get so mad. So just try to rotate people, try to see what fits best, who can recommend what. And 3, and I think this one you all can take away very much so, and I think it's worthy of giving it a moment to think about, is give them time. Don't ask for a recommendation letter the week before the application's due. Don't ever do that. Like that, they don't have time to reflect. They don't have time to look at your CV. They don't have time to look at your stuff. So let's say you want to get that internship and you're asking for the recommendation letter the day before. I can tell you, I won't write it. And I know that's kind of the case with a lot of people. So give them a month. They're human. They have lives. Everybody has things that they need to do. And if you tell them with anticipation, then that gives them time to, 1, think about it, 2, cater it towards you. Let's say you want to do, I don't know, an internship with Google, and they can write about how, oh, you wrote this beautiful research paper in class about Google and how you were so eloquent with the way you were talking about the inner dynamics of a system engineer thing. So give them time to think about the work you've done. Don't just ask them the day before, because they're going to give you what you give them. If you're asking them a week before, then do you think they're really going to write you the best glowing recommendation and the best like glowing picture of what they see you? Probably. Maybe not. I don't think they'll write you a bad one, but it probably won't be the best one. And lastly, I just wanted to finish with some books. Y'all don't have to read these. I just think they're good recommendations because they were given to me when I was going through all these obstacles of 1, applying, 2, trying to think of where to apply. And just in general, I think living in the border is so unique. And I think I expressed that a little bit throughout the talk, but I really want to emphasize this as I end. Living a bicultural identity is so important. And if there's anything you take away from this talk, is that don't forget your identity. Like, don't minimize your experiences because they're not the ones that everyone else is experiencing. They're not the ones that you see on TV, because that's what makes you so important. Like I said, you don't appreciate what you have till you don't have it. And living somewhere else where no one really speaks Spanish sometimes, I never thought that would be something that would kind of bother me at times. And now I yearn every day for the day I could just say something like anything and no one's gonna look at me weird, like, oh, what was that word? Because they don't know. And lastly, I'll give you all my contact information. You can feel free to email me. I can look at your material. I can look at just stuff that you have if you want to apply to grad school. If you don't, that's okay too. Like, if you don't know what you want to do, I am probably not the best like life advisor or like school advisor, but I can tell you I know enough people that have changed their minds and ended up in different paths. And if I can't help you, someone else that I know might. And so if there's anything that you take away from this for the last time, is that people are willing to help you. There's a lot of resources here at TAMIU. There's a lot of people that are willing, able, capable, and ready to give you everything that you need and answer the questions that you have. So don't be afraid to reach out, because TAMIU has such a good community and so many people that want to give you all the resources that they can. Trust me, they really want to help you grow. And if you're willing and able and want to grow, then this is the perfect place for you. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you all so much for coming. If you all have any questions or any concerns, then I can open the floor to anything. I don't know, or in the chat if anyone talked, but I think this concludes my part. So thank you so much for listening to me for this last hour.
Great presentation. So just one more time, do you have any questions for Ms. Garcia? Be about grad school, it could be about your current class, it could be about anything really. Now's a good time to do it. Okay, well, you have her contact info. Now,